Hey guys, welcome back to Southern Gal True Crime. It is Monday. I hope everybody had a good weekend. Um, so today, of course, we have our newest Missing Person Monday episode. Have 5 cold cases, and these have a theme. In all these cases, there's either a known or a possible suspect, um, or a probable suspect in some of them. So I'll be bringing you all that information about all these cases, and we'll discuss it. But first, as always, we have our featured missing person of the night. Let me get back to the right slide. Our featured missing person is Christopher Biggers. He is 53 years old, white male, 5'8", 150 pounds, with blue eyes and brown hair. And he went missing on the 13th of this month, so just about 2 weeks ago. And he went missing from Hot Springs, Arkansas. So if you have any information about Christopher or his disappearance, please contact the Garland County Sheriff's Department at 501-622-3660. And as always, I will put a link to this information in the description box. And I'm going to try to start putting the link in the comment box too. So it'll be easier to find. So I implore you, please share this information anywhere and everywhere you can to help try to find this gentleman. All right. So as I said, missing person Monday, and I put known possible suspects. There's some very interesting information in all these cases. Some of them, to me, in my opinion, are pretty obvious. But I'll give you the information, and of course, as always, I will let you make your own judgment and decision. And I welcome all your comments about any of these cases. Just be sure all I ask is you respect the victims' families, and each other in your comments. All right, so we will get into it. And the first case is Gina Renee Hall. I have to get a little bit closer so I can read this small writing. Gina went missing on June 28th, 1980 from Redford, Virginia. She's a white female. She was, I swear my eyes are horrible tonight, 18 years old at the time of her disappearance, 5 foot to 5'2", 107 pounds. This says last known clothing or jewelry. It just says a blue towel and an ankle bracelet. Associated vehicles, a brown Chevy Monte Carlo. She has burn scars on her side extending from her upper arm to her thigh. Her blood type is O. She was a non-smoker, a non-drug user, and she drank only occasionally. So that goes to victimology. So at the time she disappeared, she was a freshman at Redford University. She had enrolled in the summer session. She was last seen after she had went out dancing with friends at the Marriott nightclub in, I said Redford earlier, Radford, Virginia, on June 28th, 1980. So one of her companions, Stephen Epperly, keep that name in mind, who taught at Radford University. Now, it's unknown whether he taught any of the classes that she attended, or if they just happened to cross paths at the university, or whatever the case may be. But apparently, after she had went out dancing at this nightclub, Stephen Epperly convinced her to go with him to a cabin at Claytor Lake. So right there's, to me, that is, sorry, I'm trying to adjust my camera here. To me, just this little bit of information is just disturbing to me. You have a young college student, she's 18 years old, and then you have the Stephen Epperly, who it says it taught at the university, so I'm assuming he was a professor or whatever you have to be to teach at a university, and he invites her or convinces her to go alone with him to a cabin. To me, that obviously is very disturbing. It is not, we hear, and I'm not going to get into a big discussion about this, but you're always hearing about teachers taking advantage of students. Now, I don't know if that was the case or not. If she went willingly, not putting any fault on anybody, especially the victim. But to me, that's red flag, first thing, and just I don't like that idea of a teacher convincing a student to go alone anywhere with him or her. In this case, a him. So when Epperly was questioned by the police, he said that he and Hall had gone to the cabin. He claims that she called her sister and told her sister that she would be home in the morning. Her sister stated that the call came between 1 and 1:30 in the morning. And also note that she said that her sister sounded nervous at the time of the call. So according to Epperly, he went swimming. She did not. And afterwards, they left the cabin and she dropped him off in Radford. So apparently, I'm going to assume that they were in her car if she dropped him off. She dropped him off in Radford and he claimed that he went to bed. And after that, she was never seen or heard from again. So very, very suspicious, in my opinion. So this is the picture here on the left is the actual cabin that they went to. And so when police examined the cabin, they discovered that someone had tried to clean up, but blood stains that were Hall's blood type were apparent in several places, both outside and inside the cabin. A striped towel, a blue towel, a quilt, a bath mat, and some cleaning supplies were missing. Big, big red flags, obviously. And Stephen Epperly could provide no explanation as to why there was blood in the cabin, or it looked like somebody had cleaned up, and why all these items were missing from the cabin. Now, Hall's sister's brown Chevy Monte Carlo, which is the car that the victim had been driving that night, was found abandoned at the Pulaski County end of a railroad trestle over the New River. The driver's seat, now this is important, the driver's seat was pushed all the way back. The victim was so short that she had to drive with the seat pushed all the way forward. So that will lead you to theorize or deduce that she did not drive the car there. There were blood stains and hairs inside the trunk, and the blood type was the victim's blood type, and the hairs were consistent with the victim's hair. So, just going off that information, I'm going to go with the assumption that, and I think the authorities, the police, also believe that she was killed at the cabin and transported in the trunk of the car. Which of course obviously would make sense. But please let me know what you think in the comments. All comments are welcome. There are a lot of you out there. I always say there's more of y'all out there that are smarter than I am, that may think of some things that I can't think of or haven't thought of. Because I have to do these videos just whenever I can in a hurry, and it's usually really late at night like it is now, and my brain sometimes doesn't work so well late at night. But anyway, back to the case. Oh, goodness, I'm going backwards. Okay, So this is pictured here is the actual location, the train trestle where the car was found. Um, a bloodstained blue towel was found near the car, and it was identified as Epperly's. One of the, I don't know if it was one of the missing items that was missing from the cabin. And it contained fibers consistent with those from the carpet at the Claytor Lake cabin. So it's very good evidence. One of Hall's shoes was found at the opposite end of the railroad trestle. So I don't know how it got from where the car was to the opposite end of the trestle, and it didn't give a distance of how far away that was. So 2 weeks later, searchers found the second missing towel and clothing that Hall had been wearing the night of her disappearance. They were lying on the riverbank near where her car had been. The clothes had been tied up in a bundle. Of course, they were bloodstained. It says they were not ripped or torn. So unknown, or I would assume, I hate to say I assume, I don't like to assume anything, but if they weren't ripped, possibly she either, because we're going back to the assumption that she was harmed at the cabin. She either took them off willingly at the cabin, because I don't think it says in here anywhere that I remember if she was SA'd or not. You would assume yes. Well, like I said, I don't know for sure. It's just an assumption. So she either took them off willingly, or if she wasn't SA'd, they were removed after. Well, that doesn't make sense either, because they would have. Well, they were bloodstained. They were removed maybe before she was, before, I don't know. This one's got me confused. So they're bloodstained, but they were not ripped. So one scenario, and please let me know scenarios that you come up with about why they were not ripped, but they were bloodstained. I'm at a loss. They could have been removed after she was harmed. That would explain the blood stains and not the ripping, because she wouldn't be able to. If she was alive, you would assume there would be a struggle, and some of the clothes would be ripped somehow. But anyway, like I said, please let me know any ideas you guys have. The clothing items had head hairs similar to Hall's and pubic hairs similar to Epperly's. That says similarly. So this is back in the early 80s. So I don't know how advanced the DNA technology was back then. Of course, obviously not as advanced as it is now. So I don't know what kind of DNA evidence that they could get off of them all, other than to say, like they said here, that they were similar. But in any case, the other items that were missing from the house were never recovered. So, and I think let me read back. It says the car and this other stuff was found near a riverbank, so it's possible the other items possibly could have been thrown into the river. I don't know how big this river is, but possibility. So Epperly was charged with Cynthia's killing later in 1980. Although the weapon was never found, investigators theorized that he either stabbed or beat her after she refused his sexual advances. He did not present any witnesses at trial, which he probably didn't have any. I mean, unless there was, and it's unknown, once again, whether he was at the party at the Marriott that she was at, or if she met or they came cross paths after she left the party. So if there was witnesses, it would have, I would assume he was at the party, or he could have been at the party. That would be the only witnesses, but apparently he didn't have any witnesses, or at least he didn't present them. Though he maintained his innocence, of course, in her case, he was convicted of first degree, and he was sentenced to life in prison, and he is still incarcerated. Now this is from 2000. This picture is 2018. It's 2023. So I'm assuming that he's still incarcerated at this time. So this case, we had a alleged, most definite suspect and offender in this case, according to a court of law. All right. So Cynthia's remains have never been found, but obviously foul play is suspected due to the circumstances. And this says that her case was the first conviction without a body in Virginia history. So I thought that was interesting. So we all know what they call them, no body trials or no body convictions. I need to look at the statistics on how rare or frequent a conviction is when there no body is recovered. But I'm sure there's somebody out there that knows. So if you know, please leave it in the comments. So if you have any information regarding this case, you can contact the Bradford Police Department at 540-731-3626, or the Virginia State Police at 804-674-2026. All right, next we have, it always bothers me when bothers me more with when we have a child. So this is Tiffany Jennifer Pepish. Grab a drink. I apologize for drinking on camera. I know it's rude, or considered rude by some people. Once again, very small writing. I'll try to get the information from the bigger writing. So Tiffany went missing on June 13th, 1980, from Maple Heights, Ohio. This is considered a non-family abduction. She was a white female. She was just 6 or 8. I'm sorry, the writing is so small. At the time of her disappearance, she was about 4 foot tall, and I think it says 58 pounds. She was last seen shorts, a red and blue t-shirt that said, "Let's face it, I'm cute." Yes, she is very cute. And sneakers, blue sneakers. So Tiffany was last seen inside the convenient food mart in her hometown of Maple Heights, Ohio, which is, it says, a suburb of Cleveland. She had purchased hamburger buns at the store, and she left the store at approximately 2:45 p.m. She disappeared while en route back to her family's residence, which was only half a block away. So that's half a block is, I mean, that's a very short space to just disappear from. It just makes it so, I always say this in my videos, it's just so scary and so unnerving to know that somebody within that short of a distance, that short of a time frame, can just disappear into thin air. But unfortunately, it happens a lot. Tiffany has never been heard from again, and they started searching for her at 3 p.m. So just like 15 minutes after she was reported leaving the store at 2:45, and by 3 o'clock, they had already started searching for her when she did not return home. So at the time, Tiffany's dad was at work. He was cleared as a suspect in her case early in the investigation. Tiffany's stepmother, who had raised her since she was 4 years old, passed a polygraph, and she was also cleared. So we come to Brandon Lee Flagner. Now this is, I say it a lot in my videos, a bad, bad man. So Brandon Lee Flagner, whose given name was Chico Virgilio Tenorio, I hope I didn't butcher that, did confess to Tiffany's assault, killing, and I always forget, trigger warning. I'll try to remember to say trigger warning at the beginning of the videos, but I don't always remember. Trigger warning. He also dismembered her. So he admitted, or he confessed to this while he was in prison in Texas in 1983, which was 3 years after Tiffany's disappearance. At the reason he was incarcerated was for, I got to be careful how I say this. He enjoyed children. Let's just put it that way. And also for burglary. In interviews with the FBI, Flagner said that he abducted Tiffany, drove her to a wooded area by a nearby school. He said that he, GSW, accidentally, when she resisted his advances. He stated, I don't even know if I want to read this. He stated that he consumed, this is a big trigger warning, I'm sorry. He consumed parts of Tiffany's body and disposed of pieces of it in various parts of Ohio. Like I said, this is a very, I'm not even going to call him a man. He is a monster. In my opinion, this is just my opinion. He is a monster. Plain and simple. So he also wrote to 2 ministers and an Ohio television station confessing or talking about the crime. One of the clues that, or pieces of evidence, he mentioned the scar on Tiffany's knee, which was not generally known to the public at the time. Now, it says it's not generally known to the public. It is unknown, according, and all this information, as always, comes from the Charley Project. So I'm just going by the little, the bits of information they put in here. It's unknown whether he knew Tiffany or the family, or if it was just a stranger. It just said it was a non-family abduction, but they could have, it was either an abduction of opportunity. He just happened to see her walking down the street and grabbed her, or he had seen her before and maybe premeditated or whatever. But whatever the case may be, he knew about the scar on her knee. So apparently he ultimately made at least 30 confessions to this crime, but many of his statements contradicted each other. And as usually happens, he later retracted all of his confessions, claiming he only made the statements because he was about to be released from prison and he wanted to stay and get SO treatment. I have to be, you can read it on here, but I have to be careful about saying certain things out loud. So he wanted to stay in prison apparently to get treatment for his sickness, because it definitely is a sickness. But nonetheless, he was convicted of 2 counts of aggravated M and 1 count of kidnapping in June of 1985. So apparently his victims from Texas, which were all girls who were under the age of 10 at the time, that they were assaulted, testified against him at trial. So God bless them for doing that, because it's hard enough for an adult who would go through something like this, like an essay, to testify against their offender, but for these little girls to get up there and have the courage and the strength to do that, God bless them. So they testified against him at trial and said that he had threatened them with violence to get them to comply with his wishes. He was sentenced to life in prison for Tiffany's crime and 25 years for kidnapping. And says at the time that this was written that he would not be eligible for parole until 2019. So I will have to go back and look into this, and hopefully he is still in prison and did not get paroled. He grew up in Elyria, Ohio, which is not far from Maple Heights, which I believe is where she was kidnapped from. So it's possible that they could have crossed paths. He could have seen her before he abducted her. He was arrested for burglary in 1978 and sentenced to 2 5-year terms, but he was paroled after only 16 months. And he was released from prison 3 months before Tiffany went missing. So this, and I know, I have faith in our justice system. For the most part, it works. And I know it was just, although I abhor burglary thieves, just burglary, but he was sentenced to 2 5-year terms. So that would have meant if he was served his terms, he would have been in jail for 10 years, but he was paroled after 16 months. So you would just got to think that if he would have served his whole sentence, and I understand how, parole works and overcrowding and all this stuff, but I just have to believe that if he would have served his 10 years, that maybe little Tiffany would still be with us today. But that's just my opinion. Just my opinion. So apparently before he was ultimately arrested and charged with this crime, he was actively involved in the search for Tiffany. And this is not unusual for offenders to insert themselves somehow into either with the media, talking to the police, helping with searches. It's not unusual for the offender to insert himself or herself somehow into the crime that they committed. He offered to sell t-shirts with her picture on it to raise awareness and funds for the search. But apparently the family did not want him doing this, because it says the Papish family had him arrested and the police warned him not to bother them. So apparently either they didn't like him, which I wouldn't either, or they may have possibly had a suspicion that he might have had something to do with it and didn't want him anywhere around. But regardless, either way, I would not want him around anybody, especially children. Another interesting piece of information and evidence. After Tiffany's disappearance, Flagner asked his wife and brother to destroy a metal box which was in the trunk of his car. Now, this box contained, among other things, children's clothing. Unknown if it was Tiffany's clothing, other children's clothing. In November of 1980, he told his brother that Tiffany's father had hired him to find Tiffany's killer, and that he thought Tiffany's father himself had committed the crime. So this guy, I'm just going to be rude and blunt, this guy's a whack job and a half. Just my opinion. I try to stay neutral and not get too it's not being sarcastic, be too mean or whatever in when I'm doing these cases, but like I said, when it involves children and this guy's history that he had even before this crime, I don't really feel bad about talking bad about him. So yeah, so he thought, you know, or alleged claim that Tiffany's father hired him to find Tiffany's killer. Oh, excuse me, I'm not supposed to say that word either on YouTube. The offender, and that he thought that Tiffany's father had committed the crime and killed his own daughter. So, as I said before, this is a bad man, bad monster. So, despite all the evidence, his background, and everything, all the information I've given you so far, according to, I don't know, like I said, the Charley Project is the source, but I don't know, they get their stuff from different sources. But apparently, many people believe that Flagner was innocent of involvement in Tiffany's case. The police initially discounted his confession, saying that his statements were inconsistent. There was no evidence to support them. His time card shows that he was at work at Staco, I don't know what that is, in Creston, Ohio, which is about 40 miles away from Maple Heights, up until half an hour before Tiffany's disappearance. Now, some have suggested that one of Flagner's co-workers stamped his time card for him, but all of his fellow employees denied doing so. Well, of course they would, because if they admitted to it, first of all, as at a work standpoint, that's illegal, or, frowned upon to do, is to cover for a coworker and punch their time card for them. His employers say that while no one specifically remembers seeing Flagner at work that day, so no one can definitively put him there. Unknown if there were cameras, CCTV that could prove that he was there. So no one specifically remembers seeing him there at work that day. The production line needed 5 people, apparently, Flagner included, to function properly. Now, that's not to say that, sorry, let's shift a little bit here. That's not to say that if he could have found somebody to punch his time card for him, maybe he could have found somebody to take his place on the production line. Now, this is just all speculation on my part. I hate to use the word speculation, but that's what it is, speculation. But nonetheless, he was convicted, so hopefully he is still in jail where he needs to be, and will never get out. Let's see. So, Flagner was convicted in Tiffany's case largely because of his confession and because he has a criminal record for his interest in children. Now, he claims that he emmed over 400 young girls, but most of investigators believe it's exaggerated. Let's hope to God it's exaggerated, because one is too many. He remains in prison, but investigators in Tiffany's case and many members of her own family many members of her family do not believe Flagner was the responsible party. And her remains have never been located. So that is interesting, or to me at least. I'm sorry I'm moving around so much, but quick side note, the other day I slipped and fell, did the splits. One leg went one way, one leg went the other way. So I'm having a lot of trouble with some lower back pain. So I apologize for moving around a lot on camera, but I can just, if I sit in one position too long, it really hurts. But anyway, so I think that's interesting that, and it doesn't say which members, it just says many members of her family do not believe that he was responsible. Now, I would like to know, and I'm going to have to look into this one further. I may have to do a follow-up video on this case, because I would be interested to know which family members don't think that he was involved and why they don't think he was involved. Now, they may have good reason. They may know information that we don't know. But at any rate, if you have any information regarding Tiffany's disappearance, or any information about her remains, where they may be located, you can call the Maple Heights Police Department at 216-662-5884, or the FBI Washington D.C. office at 202-324-3000. All right. Sorry, I'm drinking a lot tonight. I promise it's only tea. I didn't add anything to it. Although I could have, because I don't have to work tomorrow. All right. Next, we have Denise and Denault or Denault. I apologize if I butcher these names. She went missing on June 8th, 1980 from Manchester, New Hampshire. She's a white female. She was 25 years old when she went missing. She was 5'5" to 5'6", 135 pounds, and she was last seen a brown print skirt. She had blonde hair, blonde brown hair, brown green eyes, and her maiden name is Lavoy, I believe it says. So Denise was last seen leaving a private social club in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire at about 1:30 a.m. on June 8th, 1980. She left the club saying that she's going to another party, or to a party, and after that she was never heard from again. A few details are available in her case. She was divorced. She had 2 young sons at the time of her disappearance. She lived with a roommate on Hayward Street in Manchester, and it says it is uncharacteristic of her to leave without warning. So once again, that goes back to victimology. So interestingly, just as a side or part of the side note to this case, Lauren Ron was a 14-year-old girl who lived on Merrimack Street, was just 2 blocks from, it's so late, I'm already forgetting names, Denise, which was just 2 blocks from where Denise disappeared from. Let me just make sure I read this right. Lauren Ron, 14-year-old girl, lived on Merrimack Street, was just 2 blocks, she lived 2 blocks from Denise. Now, Lauren disappeared 6 weeks before Denise did, and she was never found. Trying to get this. Okay. She and Denise reportedly closely resembled each other in spite of the difference in their ages, because Lauren was 14, and let me go back. Denise was 25. So yeah, that's a pretty big age difference. So Lauren disappeared 6 weeks before Denise. They resembled each other, but it has never been shown or known or linked that they're disappearances had anything to do with each other. Also, important to know, Denise also lives just a few doors down from suspected serial offender Terry Peter Rasmussen, who at that time was living in the area under the name Bob Evans. When I read that, the first time I read it, it reminded me of the Bob Evans. I think there's a chain of restaurants, but they also sell like the Bob Evans mashed potatoes in the stores. Anyway, the strangest things come to me sometimes when I'm reading through these. Anyway, which of course was a false identity. And this is a picture of Mr. Rasmussen there on the left. He pled guilty to the killing of his wife in California in 2003, and he passed away in 2010. Unknown whether he passed away of natural causes or what, but needless to say, he is not on this earth anymore. So, authorities believe that Mr. Rasmussen was responsible for at least 5 more crimes, including the killing of Denise Bowden, who disappeared from Goffstown, New Hampshire in 1981. She was never found. The killings of a woman and 3 female children whose bodies were found in a wooded area near Bear Brook State Park in Allentown, New Hampshire. The bodies were all unidentified until 2019, when investigators announced that they discovered the identity of the woman and her 2 daughters. And the woman was Marlise Elizabeth Honeychurch. She was 24. And the other two of the children were identified as her daughters, Mary Elizabeth Vaughn and Sarah Lynn McWaters. And it doesn't say given age. And I think I forgot to put the slide in. Yeah. And it was just confusing how they worded it, but also within, and I don't know why I didn't include this information. I was in a hurry when I was doing the slideshow. Another child was found, the 3rd child, and it was believed that this 3rd child that was found possibly could have been Rasmussen's daughter. And I think it said she was determined that she was 2 to 3 years old. And that she, I believe it said, possibly could have been of a Native American descent, at least on the mother's side. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna have to do a follow up on this video, because there's a lot of information that I didn't include in this this video. But I'm definitely going to go back and take a closer look at it. All right. So we have Mr. Rasmussen, who is once again another very, very bad man. So investigators don't know whether Rasmussen was involved in Denise's case, but are investigating a possible connection. And of course, her disappearance remains unsolved. So if you have any information, you can contact the Manchester Police Department at 603-668-8711. All right. Next, we have Rita L. Reinhardt. Miss Reinhardt went missing on April 18th, 1880 from Kansas City, Missouri. She was, once again, small writing, 32 years old at the time she disappeared. 5'9", about 200 pounds. She had brown hair, brown eyes. She wore glasses. Her right hand was deformed, and apparently she was on the CB radio, liked to talk to truckers and such. And her handle was Wild Woman. So that might jog somebody's memory about this case. So she was last seen in Kansas City, Missouri on April 18th, 1980. She worked at the Folgers coffee plant, but she lived in Raymore, Missouri. Raymore, Missouri. I'm assuming the Folgers coffee plant was in Kansas City. She had moved there to get away from her abusive husband, David. And she was never seen or heard from again. I'm assuming, so at the time of her disappearance, she was driving a 1972 Chevy half-ton pickup truck, olive green with a yellow hood and a yellow right front fender. So I give you this information because in these cold cases, especially cold cases, any detail, big or small, such as what they were wearing, any deformities, or they may have had vehicles they were driving, could jog somebody's memory. And it had a Missouri license plate. So unknown whether she disappeared. I'm assuming sometime after she left, maybe finished her shift at the plant and had left. So David's brother, which is her husband that she claimed was abusive, found her truck in Blue Springs, Missouri on May 19th, which was over a month after Rita disappeared. The truck had apparently been towed to that location and had been there since at least May 1st. Its transmission line had been cut. A shovel, a serrated knife, a rope, a woman's purse were inside the vehicle, but there was no sign of Rita at the scene. So, to me, the key piece of information, the key thing in this piece of information is the transmission line had been cut. And it's also a little red flaggy, maybe, that her husband's brother was the one that found the truck. Could be something, could be nothing, but definitely the transmission line had been cut. So, one scenario or something that I could come up with is she finished her shift the day she disappeared. She finished her shift at the coffee plant. She went out, tried to start the truck. Maybe it wouldn't start, or it started and it ran a little bit. Pooped out on her with the transmission line cut. Somebody, and I have my suspicions, picked her up and but see, that doesn't make sense though, now that I think about it. If the transmission line was cut, and I don't know how far Blue Springs is from where she worked at Raymore or wherever it was, where the truck was. So that doesn't make sense about the transmission line being cut. Okay, I'll have to think about that one. Or you guys out there who are much smarter than me, give me your ideas. So that's one thing, transmission line cut. Of course, obviously, the big thing is the shovel, the serrated knife, the rope, and the woman's purse that were found inside the vehicle. Does not say if the woman's purse was Rita's. One would assume that it was, but not for sure. And as I said, there's no sign of Rita at the scene. So that's just a little a lot suspicious. So possibly, I hate to name because I'm unsure if there was a suspect or a known or possible suspect in this case, because I put it together not too long ago and it's late at night and My brain's not working. Today was my Friday work week day, so my brain's not working on full power as it is. But anyway, we'll go on and we'll see. So prior to Rita's disappearance, David, which was the husband, had been charged with assaulting her 8-year-old daughter. Rita was supposed to testify against him, but she disappeared before the trial. Coincidence? In my opinion, no, that's not a coincidence. She had said that she was afraid of her husband and claimed that he had once held a gun to her head. So yes, I would be very afraid of him too. And what he did to her daughter, I'll say it before, I've said it before and I'll say it again, there is a special place in hell for people like that. So David was ultimately convicted of the assault of Rita's daughter, and he served 5 years in prison. I guess 5 years is better than none. And Rita's daughters were raised by relatives. Obviously, foul play is suspected in Rita's case due to the circumstances, and her case remains unsolved. But my opinion would be that her husband had something to do with it. Don't know about the brother. He's the one that found the truck. It could have just been a coincidence. I'll let you be the judge of that. Please feel free to leave your comments about your opinions. Just as I stated before, just be respectful of victims, families, and each other. So if you have any information, you can contact the Kansas City Police Department at 816-234-5136. All right, and I believe this is the last one. We have Cindy Mae Brown. She went missing on March 10th, 1980 from Roseville, Minnesota. She's a white female. She was 22 years old at the time. 5'2", 110 pounds. Brown hair, blue eyes. She had a scar on her left pinky finger, extending from the palm to the fingertip. And she may have used the last name of Jones. So she was last seen in Roseville, March 10th, 1980. She told her supervisor at Kmart that she was leaving town, which is a little odd, or in my opinion. She has never been heard from again. Now, her roommate, Patrick Thomas Walsh, keep that name in mind, told police that she left for California in a brown van with a woman and 2 men, and she left her own car behind. So take that as you will. At the time, authorities believed that she had left of her own accord. She was not reported missing until July 29th, which was about 4.5 months after she was last seen. She lived on Rice Street in Roseville at the time of her disappearance. So we'll go back to Mr. Walsh. Apparently, he had an extensive criminal record as a teenager. He had previously spent time in St. Peter Hospital after being found not guilty by reason of insanity in the attempted killing of a 23-year-old woman. He was released in 1977, which was 3 years before Brown's disappearance. Doctors at the hospital stated that he had an antisocial personality, but he was not mentally ill. Which kind of makes sense because I've been told that I have an antisocial personality. But I'm not mentally ill, hopefully. So that I can kind of see that. Because people can be antisocial and not have a mental illness and not go out and harm people. But in 1984, another acquaintance of Walsh's, Cindy Gertis, excuse me, was found stabbed to death. And in 1991, he was charged with killing one of his female coworkers, Pamela Susan Sweeney. He was found guilty of that crime, burglary, and SA in that case. So we have, recapping, if I can remember what I just read in the previous slide. He was in a mental hospital. Well, mental evaluation said he was antisocial, but he was not mentally ill. 1984, an acquaintance of his was found deceased. 1991, he was charged and found guilty of the crime of Pamela Susan Sweeney. So it's not looking too good for, in my opinion, for Mr. Walsh. It's just my opinion, once again, but I will love to hear your opinions. So Mr. Walsh is considered a possible suspect in Cindy Gertis's murder, and the picture on the left in the slide, that is Cindy Gertis. And he is a suspect in Brown's disappearance, which has been reclassified as a possible homicide. Neither of their cases have ever been solved, however, and the original victim that we were talking about, I apologize, I forgot the first name again, has never been located. So if you have any information, you can call the Roseville Police Department at 651-767-0640. All right, and that was our last case. So what do you guys think about, I'll multitask here for a minute. What do you guys think about these cases? What are your opinions about the guilt or innocence of any of the people that were convicted in some of these cases? Because there was the one, I forgot which one now, that authorities and even some members of the it was the Peppish, Sherry Peppish, the 14-year-old, that case. There was even some members of our own family that do not think that he had anything to do with, even though he was convicted of it, don't believe that he had anything to do with it. And that was the one that said that he worked at the factory and that he may have had somebody clock him in and out. But whatever the case may be, please leave comments about any of these cases, comments and opinions. I would love to hear them. I try to read all my comments. With my little baby channel, I don't get a whole lot of comments. So a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and comments and likes and shares will be greatly appreciated. It helps the YouTube algorithm push it out more, and that's the most important thing that I want to do here, is to the more people that see these videos, the better, to help get the information out about these cases, and do a little part in this my little corner of YouTube to try to find some resolution, or just at least most importantly get the information out. So if you like what I do here at Southern Gal True Crime, please consider subscribing. Check the notification bell to all, so you won't miss when I upload any new videos. I try to upload 2 to 3 times a week. Monday is Missing Person Monday. Friday is the case of the week. Wednesday, sometimes if there's anything going on with current true crime in the news, I'll bring you that information, or just if I happen to come across something interesting that's true crime related, I'll do a video on Wednesday. So until then, or until next time, please do take care of yourselves. Be very careful out there, and take care of each other. That's the most important thing we can do, is take care of each other, so that we can all make it through this life safely. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.